Okay, on this video I'm going to show how to use Redgard. Redgard is a topical membrane that goes on my shower walls, whether I'm building a half bath shower or full shower. This always encompasses anywhere there's going to be water eventually, and it is a best way I can describe it, it's a liquid rubber. So as you can see, it's pink, and that's how it goes on when it's applied. When it's dry, it will become a bright red, and I'm looking for my painter stick. You can see this is a water soluble product, so there's a little bit of water floating at the top, not a whole lot. So you want to get rid of that water, kind of mix it together. You don't have to mix it the way you would a bucket of paint. Doesn't make any sense to have to put it in a shaker or anything like that. But just if you could get rid of some of that surface water on the top there, then that would help things a lot when you apply it. Anyway, don't be freaked out by the fact that it's water soluble, because once it dries, it's irrelevant. Because it is water soluble, the cleanup is really easy. Water hose. So what I use to apply this stuff is a very large painter's trough, if you will. And so I have used this over the years many times, and this is the easiest way that I found to apply it with a roller and a brush. So that's really the only two things you need. After you mix it up like that, you're going to pour some inside of here. I usually start out with not quite half bucket, because you don't know how much of this stuff you're going to use, what you're not going to use. Anyway, so before I get started on that, let me explain some things that have to do with prep. These are the walls. This is a shower that I'm putting this Redgard on, and these are the walls that are already prepped for my Redgard. So regardless, I'm using green board in here with this bathtub shower combo. So whether or not you're using green board, Durarock, Wonder Board, Hardy Backer, doesn't really matter. The prep is always the same. You want to make sure that all your holes are filled and that all your cracks are filled with whatever you decide to use, whether it's mortar, sheetrock, mud, or whatever. So obviously the prep goes involved with that. Hold on a second. Gotta get my cord wrapped around here. There is a mesh tape. It's a sticky mesh tape, if I can find it here. Okay, so this mesh tape you can get at Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. When you pull off a strip, it is sticky on the inside, not the outside, but sticky on the inside, and so you can cut it with a razor knife, whatever. When you use it, all you do is simply attach it into the corner so that both sides have an even space to the left and the right, and then just press it down, pretty good. Put some pressure on it and it'll self-stick. So that would go on the corner, in the corner over here, all the way down to the bottom. And then all the corners of my niche get this tape as well. Sometimes I've been asked about this tape. There are a lot of things that I do that are against what other people do, and not always do I use this tape, and I'm going to explain the reason why. The main reason people use this tape is because everybody knows that houses have movement, slight movement over the years, and what they're concerned about is somehow or another the separation between the two board. Whether it be that corner, whether it be this corner, there's going to be a slight separation. And so what they're concerned about is, for whatever reason, they think that their tile and their grout isn't sealed enough that water could somehow get back into here. The illogic of that is because you're putting Redgard on here. It doesn't really matter if there's tape on here or not. The Redgard, if you imagine my glove being Redgard, precludes water from ever getting inside. So even if you had movement in that corner, the Redgard would stop the water from ever seeing that to begin with. Redgard is very flexible. Let me show you. So today, after many years of using this pan, which I've already shown you, I took out the bottom layer of this Redgard that's been built up in there for years. So just to show you, this is what the pan surface looked like. And if you turn it over, look at all the divots and all that stuff. Those divots actually match up with all those divots. So it's kind of funny. But this is a piece of rubber. This is a very thick piece of rubber here. You know, rubber of course gives. You know, it's very, very difficult to try and tear this apart. I actually had to use a knife in order to cut it. But because it is rubber, rubber gives. And as I feel it, you know, you can feel the motion of the rubber giving. So now back to here. When you've applied 2 or 3 coats, which I generally do in the corners, the cracking that you're going to have going on is maybe a 1/16 of an inch, maybe not even that. Even if it was an 1/8 of an inch, see all this Redgard that you're putting in here precludes any water from ever seeing that crack, because of course it is a liquid rubber and it's going to give in the corners. You're not going to have enough water. In other words, we're not building a waterfall that's going to be continuous water all the time, all the time, all the time. It's a shower, 10-minute shower, next person takes a shower, you know, it has 12, 14 hours to dry out until the next shower is taken, whatever. So, you know, in my mind's eye, I can't ever see, especially on a vertical surface, water getting to the point where it just has to get into that crack that's behind here. There's too many things that are going on here with regard to the Redgard, couple coats. Actually, I do 3 coats in the corner, but so you have 3 coats in the corner already, and then you're putting tile, and tile is butting up against the tile, and then you got grout line, and then you got the caulking. In my wildest dreams, I can't imagine that the separation of the wallboard is ever going to take place and would be relevant anyway once you put a topical membrane on, whether it's Redgard, whether it's Hardy, whether, you know, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Not Hardy, what's the other products? I'm at a loss for words right now. When I do videos, sometimes it's hard to think. But anyway, for the purposes of demonstration, I did put this tape in here. It's a redundancy. My feeling that it's redundancy. It's not really needed, but it doesn't hurt anything. It took me all of less than 5 minutes to put all this tape up, so it's not a big deal. But as a rule, I usually go against the grain of people that require certain things because it's illogical in my mind, and if it's illogical, then I'm not going to do it. But I did it for demo purposes here, so that you know what's going on. Anyway, getting back to the Redgard. So what I generally do, once it's in my pan, I do the brush thing in the corners. So I always want to hit my corners first and foremost. You can't really put too much of this stuff on. Of course, the thicker you put it on, the longer drying time you have. Generally speaking, if you just let it sit there and had no movement of air, it'll probably take at least about 3 hours to dry. Again, depending on the thickness. But I always bring a fan with me to expedite the drying process. And so it usually takes, I don't know, about an hour, hour and a half, even for the thicker areas to dry. So, very liberal with this stuff. The other precaution that I take is I wear the gloves. Now, because it's liquid rubber, it'll come right off your hands, especially when it's wet. It'll come off with water. And even if it does dry, it'll peel right off, just like I showed you with my painter's pan. It'll peel right off your hands. And actually it'll peel off just about any non-porous surface relatively easily, which includes this tub. So although I've taken some precaution not to get any onto the tub, if it should happen, I don't really worry about it. I'll let it dry. It's easier to peel off when it's dry than it is to slop it around with a rag or something like that. Other precaution that I take, if you're in an enclosed bathroom, it seems like nowadays almost every bathroom I run into does not have a functional window. And because it doesn't have a functional window, I end up breathing all this stuff. And this is not fun to breathe after a while. Kind of gets to you. So it's supposed to be in a well ventilated area. This bathroom in particular does not have a fan. Nor does it have any, well, it does have a window. So I'm okay with that. But then I'll put a fan on the window, let all the fumes go to the outside. So could I just as easily roll the inside of this? Yes, I could. And sometimes I do by the time I get to the second and third coat. But I just like the idea of the thickness on the first coat to be there. Okay, because we're going to use a roller, another thing that I do is I paint the outside edge, because my roller will overlap this outside edge, but again, this is where the two pieces of wallboard come together, so I feel better about doing too much than not enough. So, as I said, this will get overlapped by virtue of the roller when I start doing the walls. But it's a nice, good, thick coat on to begin with. So that's how you want to start it. I'm going to go ahead and paint these corners, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. The corners got done with a good liberal coat of Redgard in the corners. You see there's a little slop going on there, but as I said before, it's easier to clean that up when it's dry. Just peel right off. Same as my piece peeled off of the pan. Anyway, so both corners got, as I said, a good liberal coat. If you use the mesh tape, you're going to need to put quite a bit inside of the corner there. You can't quite fit that mesh tape at a complete square in the corner. It wants to pop out a little bit, kind of rounded, so you're going to have to push more of this Redgard inside of there to do anything with the corner. If you don't use the tape, then it's much easier to get at the corner and get a good solid coat inside of there. Another reason I don't really particularly like the tape, but it is what it is. So anyway, we're at the point where I'm going to start using the brush, the roller. And so, as I've shown you already, the roller got saturated with this Redgard. I'm trying to figure out how to hold the camera since I'm right-handed. Anyway, doesn't really matter where you start at. I feel kind of silly showing you how to paint, because that's basically what you're doing. You're just painting a wall. Except instead of paint, you're using Redgard, which is the only difference. Other than that, same old, same old. As a rule, I go up just to the point where the shower head goes past, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches or so, because I know water will never see way up there, so there's not much to protect at that point. But I do a good little coat around the head and go beyond that. Again, water's not really going to see this area or on the edge here so far, but it doesn't hurt to have an extra coat that extends past the tub. In this case, sometimes a brush is easier to get around these corners and stuff. But again, when water's not going to see this area, it's really not necessary to do it, but you never really know how sloppy some people are with their water when they take a shower, so I always err on the side of caution and do as far out as I can, knowing full well there's going to be tile over it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. my tile will overlap. In other words, where my Redgard stops. Definitely want to get down to the edge. Usually when I get around a fixture is when I'll use a brush because it's easier. So I'll revert back to the brush for the purposes of getting around these areas. And I'll go over that again, second time, maybe a third if I have enough. Okay, so that pretty much covers that entire wall. As I said, maybe 8-10 inches above the shower head, all the way down to the outside. I'm going to go ahead and get a brush and do this outside portion a little bit more. In the meantime, I'm going to do these two walls. I'm not going to bore you with all the painting that I'm doing, and I will be back. Okay, this is finished with one coat, and the one coat needs to dry before I put on the second one. If I have enough in here, I'll put a third one on. I usually use up the whole container. By the way, these containers cost, it's a gallon container, costs about $50 at Home Depot. Lowe's has their own product. This one goes on pink and dries red. I think Lowe's goes on blue and dries green, or vice versa. But anyway, it's basically the same product. Aqua Dense is another one, Aqua Guard. Not really sure of the other product, but there's different ones out there, and they all basically work the same way. It's a topical membrane. And the word I was looking for before was Kurdish Schluter, which is also a topical membrane. Very expensive for me to buy a kit to do this shower. Would have cost me in excess of $300. And it's doing the same thing as this for 50 bucks, and that's why I like it. As I said, this is the one coat. I actually did a secondary coat in the corners, both the corners over here and inside the niche. I did a secondary coat. And so I will let this dry. That's about how far I take it. If I'm doing a large shower, a steam shower, something like that, I'll go all the way to the top. I did come out the edge here. Sometimes when I see damage around the tub, I see it on that wall right there, right close to the tub, and right over there. So I did do those walls. And there's a little slot going on, but as I said, when that dries, it's real easy to take off. And that's it. So I'll put another coat on here. Probably, I don't know, I'll give it about an hour to an hour and a half to dry completely before I do that. In the meantime, the fan, I'm actually going to start because the fumes are a little noxious. So that's really, it's not a difficult process. Anybody can do this. And I have another video called Redgard on Cardboard, where I painted a box of cardboard with 3 coats of this stuff. Let it set for a week solid and no water penetrated, which again is the whole reason I don't believe in the wallboard being important. When you do a topical membrane, it doesn't matter if I had cardboard on this wall. I put 2 or 3 coats of Redgard on, put my tile on, seal it well, and it'll never see water anyway. So it's kind of crazy that people are going overboard, overkill with regard to some of the products that they use, but it is what it is. Anyway, I shall return. Okay, I have done 3 coats on this. It basically used up the whole gallon and a little bit left, but this is 3 coats of Redgard. After the first coat dried, it, as I said, dries bright red, which is basically what you see here. Then I put a second coat on in the corners just like I did before. Corners first, got quite a bit of it, and then took a roller to the walls, and then this is a third coat. So that's all I'll do. I'll let it stand overnight with the fan on it. It'll be nice and dry, and it's prepped for tile. This excess I was telling you about already, you can get a putty knife, scrape that right off once it's dry. It's a lot easier to do once it's dry. although tile is going to be sitting up against there anyway. And then same at the bottom here, any little excess stuff you can take right off. So that is basically how to apply Redgard. Makes your shower waterproof. In fact, right now it doesn't really need any tile. You could literally put the shower head on, put the valve on, put the tub spout on, and use this shower indefinitely with no tile whatsoever on it. It's waterproof. And that's it. Not much more to say about it. If you have any questions about the product specifically, you can go to Custom Building Products, which manufactures this stuff, and you can find out more technical data if you want to. But that's the end of my video.